Tere! Tänään arutamme keskkonna ja tervistä. Minun nimeni on Mikko Ahonen ja olen filosofian tohtori, tutkija, opettaja Tampereelta, Suomesta. Koska en puhu riittävän hyvin estin kieltä, niin jatkan englanniksi. So I will be discussing about the planned weather radar in Saaremaa, and especially about environmental and health risks. So something about my background. So I have worked as a researcher 30 years, and I have also been involved in bioelectromagnetics research in Professor Medical Dr. Lennart Hardelli's research group, and there my responsibilities have been measurements and dosimetry. And some examples of our research. So we have been measuring different places, locations and settings, and we have been thinking what are the health implications of these various kind of radiation sources and radiation levels, and especially related to radio frequency radiation. And we have also done epidemiological studies. And today I will look at radar, and especially weather radar. I'm curious about environmental and health issues, and I will also explain what is the limitation of current Estonian guidelines for radio frequency radiation, and I might have some risk management recommendations as well. So let's go deeper to the effects of radio frequency radiation and something about earlier radar research. When we think about radars, we are thinking about non-ionizing radiation and exposure to microwaves, like there is in the middle of this screen. So normally the basic frequencies or carrier frequencies of radars are in megahertz and gigahertz range. And interestingly, quite close to Saaremaa, on the side of Latvia, there is a small town called Skrunda, and there used to be a big radar station during Soviet time, and before it was closed down, it was possible to do studies. What is the effect to trees? Like they noticed that this radio frequency radiation from this radar station had effect on the growth of trees. And additionally, there was resin production accelerated, and it meant that it caused stress in pine trees. Also, there was effect to cows which were outside in the fields close to the radar station, so that there was DNA damage visible in micronuclei. And they also noticed memory and attention problems because of radio frequency radiation from that radar. And And there are quite many studies actually from the special number of this Science of the Total Environment journal. In the USA, they have studied a special radar in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. It's called Pave Paths Radar Station. And they noticed that there is unusual number of so-called Ewing family of tumors. In the USA, they have also studied cancer mortality close to radar stations, especially Air Force radar stations. And this publication is from 1982. And this cancer mortality was increased. And these authors or researchers, they even verified this. And they explained why is it so. So there is a planned weather radar to Saaremaa. And the manufacturer has provided information, or actually Estonia government officials have provided this information from this manufacturer. And this radar is using quite high basic frequency called, or it's 5,600 megahertz. 5,600 megahertz, and it's the same as 5.6 gigahertz. And peak power is 250 kilowatts. Average power is 300 watts. And if you compare this peak power and average power, you will see that really it is using instant powers, quite high powers, and producing pulsed radio frequency radiation with certain pulse widths and with a certain pulse repetition frequency. I will get to these pulses and pulsing a little bit later, but the specification or technical specification can be read through that link. So weather radar, it's not, let's say, an ordinary radar, so I could even demonstrate it. So this picture shows that it turns around, and also it goes up and down. So I could demonstrate that a basic radar, normal radar, just goes around ping, ping, ping. But weather radar, yes, it goes around, but it also moves in a specific sector up and down. And in a way, at least to me, it is a very active radar. So I have made measurements of weather radars here in Finland. For example, here is a 1 kilometer distance to weather radar in Helsinki area, and there is a reading, and this is the peak reading, and it says 1171 milliwatts per square meter. And I would say that it is a high reading, and if you look at that picture, there is the gigahertz solutions meter, which is made to measure radar, among with other technologies. And I have been forced, or I have added an attenuator because the power level is so high, so that I can measure that level. In Saaremaa they have planned, so there are some original plans, so that the weather radar would be situated between two villages, Varkja and Uru. And I just comment that it is not far away from your fantastic Vilsandi Natural Park, something like 10 kilometers. And I'm just saying that weather radars, they are quite powerful, and there will be a substantial exposure to wildlife in this natural park. So that is why I and my Estonian colleagues are not very pleased about this plan. So some additional comments about environment and health. So Vilsandi Rahvuspark is quite close, and as it says over there, there are unique animals and plants, like from plants 30 different orchidea species. There are unique animals. There will be seals, a lot of different birds all the time. So that is one reason why this weather radar's location and the whole plan to put it to Saaremaa is not a good one. About radio frequency radiation, the Cancer Research Center of World Health Organization has classified a radio frequency radiation possibly carcinogenic to humans in 2011. But this classification, okay, it was mostly about cell phones, but this classification covers all RF transmitters, including radars, weather radars. So that is a useful piece of information. Thereafter, there has been two very big animal studies, and Istituto Ramazzini in Italy, they made the world's biggest radio frequency radiation animal study, and it showed the heart tumors. And those readings were 6,600 milliwatts per square meter, and in another unit 50 volts per meter. And in this picture you can see this one antenna and those rats in cages around it. So this chronic exposure, this chronic radio frequency, pulsed radio frequency radiation caused the heart tumors. And interestingly, almost at the same time, there was in the USA, in the National Toxicology Program, similar animal study with rats and mice, and there was also classification, clear evidence of heart tumors. So this shows that radio frequency radiation most likely has an effect on cancer growth. When we look at trees and effect of pulsed radio frequency radiation, so this research paper is about base stations, but I recommend to read it because it contains generally discussion about various radio frequency radiation transmitters. And if some of you speaks or reads German language, So dann empfehle ich Waldschäden zu lesen. So there is the link to this rather old document, but still very actual, about forest damage and radio frequency radiation. And at the end of this page there is a nice collection of research papers related to trees and plants. And I just point out that we have already 4 peer-reviewed reviews related to nature, and they all indicate harmful effects of pulsed radio frequency radiation. They have studied also bees and how what kind of effects there are. So radio frequency radiation causes communication problems among bees, and they start producing so-called piping signal that is like a warning signal to the queen and other bees. And radio frequency radiation has an effect on food search and also the memory of the bees. And also there is an effect on pupal development in beehives. It has been long known that radio frequency radiation has effect on nature, on cells, on animals, but also on human beings. So that's, and even at low levels, in levels that are like thousands parts of our current official guidelines. So just to give you an example, when we are thinking if weather radar is installed close to a natural park, so there is research that shows that, for example, banana flies, or generally flies and insects, their fertility phases or cycle is quite easily disturbed by pulsed radio frequency radiation. And this damage or distortion takes place at very low levels, really low levels. And this Professor Margaritis research group, they have shown that, for example, basic FM radio stations and their signal doesn't have much effect, but these pulsed newer sources have much stronger effect in smaller power density levels. And even so, radio frequency radiation can cause disorientation for birds and their navigation. And this happens at 1,000 part of our existing radio frequency radio. Hello, this is Mikko Ahonen again. I will continue my presentation, and this is the second part of it. There are some interesting and also some tragic court cases related to exposure to radio frequency radiation. So in this farm, the milk production of cows was severely dropped, and actually several cows also died. And the judge ordered the removal of this base station. I'm just pointing out that this is not unique, because earlier research has indicated that radio frequency radiation from various kind of transmitters can cause cataracts to cows. And you can look at these studies at this website, which is in a quite nice collection of research, emfportal.org. And those levels that cause cataracts, they are quite low, and that is pointed at the bottom of this screen. When we are talking about the effects of radio frequency radiation, normally it's a combination of power, frequency and modulation. And this can cause oxidative stress, and our governmental radiation protection authorities, they admit that radio frequency radiation causes oxidative stress. And I have last time spoken with the Swedish radiation protection authorities about this. Of course, okay, they are admitting that it causes oxidative stress, but that is currently like their limit. So I just point out this combination, and this can cause problems to cells and also calcium channels. And this process goes further, so that even radio frequency radiation can cause, through oxidative stress, even peroxynitrite, that is even toxic to cells. And I welcome you to look at this review article here. And I just point out that no ionization is needed for harmful effects from radio frequency radiation. It is enough that it can cause oxidative stress in cells. Earlier we have known that radio and I point out, very strong radio and TV transmitters, close to them there has been more leukemias and lymphomas. Close to mobile phone base stations there has been various health problems, and some of these papers here are listing also cancer and studying cancer. And I was also involved in one review paper over there. Main author is Vinny Kurian. And I have had interest in this area for a longer time. So here is an example of weather radar close to school. And this was in Ikalinen in Finland. That is something like 40-50 kilometers from Tampere. And I was surprised about these levels. So this was like something like 200 meters distance to weather radar where I was measuring, and level was high enough that it was over my measurement range. And considering that I was using this meter with an antenna and with an attenuator, so that I could measure really higher levels, and this level was so high that my readings were exceeded. So I was a little bit surprised. 2013. So now this weather radar is moved from Ikalinen to Niinisalo. In Hardelli's research group, we have noticed that high levels are in cities, in some places in cities, and we have been discussing that is it one reason why insects have totally disappeared from some areas in some cities. We have already studies from base stations, not yet from weather radars, which show that radio frequency radiation can cause DNA damage. There are also studies showing that it has effect on human hormone profiles and generally effect on hormonal levels in human beings, but also in animals and insects. Something specific about weather radar. I'm measuring here weather radar, and I was so this is a typical thing. So the power increase is quite fast. So it was first about 50 or 45 milliwatts per square meter, and then suddenly it was already 1650 milliwatts per square meter. And these are peak levels, because the average level is normally low, but this peak level is high. And there is a case from Taiwan where there were health problems in a city, and it was discussed in this research paper, and there was just a comment that there were problems, several medical cases, cancer, hearing impairments and strokes, and this weather radar was moved to another location. So next I will show you why your current guidelines in Estonia are not protective. First, there are several countries already which have 100 times lower guidelines, like Italy, Switzerland, and so on. But there are also recommendation levels based on, for example, the work of building biologists in Germany who have been visiting thousands of homes and measured levels in homes. So these levels are like thousands times lower, and that is why it's worth looking at these appeals to create lower guidelines. So there is this EMF scientist appeal, it's worth checking. So there are several researchers, I was among them, but really there are like 250 my research colleagues who have been involved in this. And now I will point out that what is one of the big problems. So in the World Health Organization there was created a project called International EMF Project. It was created by a fellow called Mikko Ahoneni. And the strange was that half of its funding originally came from mobile industry, and when it was complained, there were also some other issues. Then Mr. Ahoneni moved to or actually established a new organization called ICNIRP or ICNIRP, International Commission of Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, and it's a closed invitation-only club in Germany. And so this project in the World Health Organization recommends ICNIRP, and ICNIRP recommends this project in World Health Organization. And this ICNIRP makes reviews for various kinds of organizations, and this is a very complex issue. and really openness would be needed here. And there are recommendation levels also for radar, and I'm just pointing out that these recommendation levels are thousands of times lower than the levels what I measured in the previous videos. And really close to, I mean, even several kilometers, sometimes even tens, 20, 30 kilometers from the weather radar, levels are quite high. And there is also a legal responsibility, because we already know that there is a problem. And this research paper discusses about these liability issues. Well, it's mostly about cell towers or base stations, but it's very relevant to radars as well. So thank you for your interest, and I'm happy to continue a discussion, and hopefully there will be, let's say, a good discussion also in Estonia about these topics, because these risks should be handled and discussed before any installations would be done. So thank you.